We now have quorum. Can you bring in the nominee? Good afternoon. Take your seat. For the record, you are Honorable Justin Bedan Joka Muturi, EGH.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable members, this is our second last nominee in this band, and the second last for today as well. Honorable Muturi, welcome to this committee. You are no doubt on familiar ground. This is a committee on appointments to engage you to assess your suitability for the office to which His Excellency the President has nominated you as Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management. Honorable members, before we do anything, I'll declare my interest. The nominee was my classmate, was my roommate at the University of Nairobi. And Posing, you better understand, the University of Nairobi. Not Nairobi University.
The University of Nairobi.
Yes.
Alumni.
That will not in any way prejudice my ability to chair this committee, to vet my classmate, roommate, and friend. I have not said this of any other nominee, because this is the only nominee I have that relationship with. Honorable nominee Muturi, you will take an oath. You have sat where I'm sitting before. You are of the faith, either Bible, is it called Gita, or Quran? Which one? Bible. So be upstanding, take the Bible in your right hand, and recite.
Owen Baya, Member, Kilifi North.
Robert Mbui, MP Kadhiani.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Dido Raso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, Balambala.
Rehab Mukami, Nyeri.
Caleb Amisi Sabuti.
We'll start in earnest. Before we ask you any questions, if you have your documents, give them to the sergeant to pass on to the clerk to verify the same. I'll ask you to introduce yourself, even as we know you, your name, your educational background, your work experience, and your key competencies that make you suitable for appointment as Cabinet Secretary in less than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and honorable members. My name is Justin Muturi, Cabinet nominee for the docket of public service and human capital management, according to the letter that I received. My education background, I may start by saying that I went through local primary schools in the village where I was born in Embu. Left the village, went to Kangaroo School, and for 6 years, and thereafter to the University of Nairobi, where after completion, I joined the Kenya School of Law for a diploma in law. Straight from the School of Law, I was employed as a magistrate, and I served in various parts, including but not limited to Bungoma, and all the courts within Bungoma and Busia, then districts, now counties. Moved to Kiambu in Githunguri and Thika, moving on to Machakos, and finally in Nairobi, where after a period spanning about slightly over 15 years, I resigned to go to venture into politics. At my first attempt in 1997, I did not succeed, but soon thereafter, the vacancy fell, the seat fell vacant through death, and I was elected as Member of Parliament for Siakago constituency, as it then was known, after which I joined Parliament, and in 2002, December, I successfully defended my seat and returned back to Parliament, where I served as opposition chief whip then, because the party on which I had been elected and been trounced very badly in the 2002 general elections, and we became the opposition. While that's the Speaker, Chairman, and a few other officers. Mr. Chairman, in 2007, I lost the parliamentary seat, and I was out of Parliament for 5 years, during which period I was deeply engaged in the constitutional review programs that were there. And I was finally elected as to chair the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. After that, Mr. Chairman, in 2013, after the general elections, I was elected the Speaker of the National Assembly, a position I held for 2 terms. In the elections of 2022, Mr. Chairman, I did not run for any office, but I joined through a coalition partnership agreement with the teams that formed Kenya Kwanza, initially being the United Democratic Alliance Party, Ford Kenya, and ANC as leader of the Democratic Party. Subsequently, His Excellency the President appointed me through a nomination that was approved by this House, by this committee, recommended for approval by this committee to the House, subsequent to which His Excellency the President appointed me as the Attorney General, the 8th Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya. I served in that position for a period of 20 months and 15 days, up to the 11th of July 2022, when I tendered my resignation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and honorable members.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker, any question?
No questions. No questions from senior. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, there is a government internship program under the Ministry of Public Service, and many of us have messages from Kenyans, especially young Kenyans who have gone through the internship program, asking what is the plan of onboarding them as permanent staff in government, or linking them with other state agencies, for permanent and pensionable jobs. And we'd want to hear what plans you have, should you be confirmed into that docket, to make sure that that internship program not only helps the youth to gain experience, but also helps them to get linked to actual permanent and pensionable jobs.
Nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Leader Majority, for that question. Indeed, I want to confirm to this committee and to Kenyans that I have also received well over close to 300 such messages from those interns, the young Kenyans who have gone through that program, which was initiated, I believe, with the very best of intentions. But unfortunately, I think the implementation has faced some challenges, because young Kenyans have been taken through the program, posted into ministries, but after 1 year, they find themselves back on the streets. Indeed, it is a very challenging thing. Mr. Chairman, my personal view about this program of internship, before I come to say what I think should be done, is that it should be changed to not just a Public Service Commission internship program. It should actually be a Kenya national internship program, where both government and the private sector become active players. I believe it would have been much better if the program had involved the private sector, because the skills that these young Kenyans have are varied. They're not necessarily trained to go and work in the public service. Because sometimes you may find a university graduate that has been trained in agriculture, for instance, being taken to the Ministry of ICT. They will just be there for those 12 months, and the stipends that they are given. After 12 months, those kids have really gained very little in terms of the field that they were trained in by way of experience. So, Mr. Chairman, my view is that this program should be worked, reworked, re-engineered, so that the young Kenyans that are taken into it are taken including the private sector, where indeed the private sector would be encouraged. Either government of Kenya, because Parliament gave the resources to the Public Service Commission to employ those or to engage those interns. But if we expanded it, it means that either the government of Kenya would have young Kenyan interns being taken to various places in industry, both in the public sector and in the private sector, where their skills would be much more relevant and be much more useful. And thereafter, either it can be agreed that government will pay for continue paying their stipends, or in the alternative, those private sector players to whom the interns would be attached would be given some incentives, and indeed perhaps if we did that, we could find that we could actually attract more Kenyan youth in the internship program than the current numbers that we take today. Moving forward, Mr. Chairman, I think it's not right to assume that governments can employ every Kenyan that has gone through school. But on the other hand, government has a responsibility. We all have a responsibility in leadership to ensure that we grow the economy of this country so as to be able to attract as many of our young, talented Kenyans into the job market. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, this is a program that I intend to, if I find favor, as Mr. Chairman, you have I've had you say from time to time, you have find favor with this committee and the House and get confirmed into this position through appointment. It is something that we will need to sit with the Public Service Commission because, as you would appreciate, the role of the ministry is to facilitate. And, here, Mr. Chairman, it's good for me to point out that public service spans across every arm. So that, indeed, Mr. Chairman, even the policeman on the road is the public service. The doctors and the health personnel are also doing public service. So it's a ministry that I find quite interesting. It permeates every sector of the public service. But more specifically, to respond to the issue raised by the Leader of Majority, which has also been raised with me, as I said at the beginning, it is to sit with the Public Service Commission and see how best to address the plight of the various cohorts, because very few, Mr. Chairman, have been absorbed in the public service. And these are our children. We all must feel for them. We see how best to have them placed in well-paying jobs and remove them from the streets. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Nominee, Kenyans, with respect to the same issue of internship, Kenyans want to know the fact that the outgoing CS did suspend ongoing and any new recruitment. If you are approved, what you're going to do about that? He had proposed a formation of a tripartite committee to look into all those issues. And they are also saying the public servants, the aging, the public service is an aged lot. And so in the interest of succession planning, what are you going to do if at all you are suspending recruitment? And finally, they're also saying they're raising the concerns on corruption and nepotism, where jobs at the public service are also going to the highest bidder or to whom you know. So if you are approved, what are you going to do about it? So kindly speak to those issues and you'll be, so that we do not bring up the issue again. Thank you.
Chairman, this is just a supplementary question. I hope I don't lose my slot later. Because I'm very interested in this. We're going to third reading of a bill I have sponsored on the public service internship. And I agree with you what you have said. We actually consulted a lot on the private sector, but we realized it needs further engagement on issues to do with private sector because incentives and all that. But now, the direct question that the young people are asking, and they have told me, without that amendment in your bill, in the third reading, but then you can stay with your bill. They are saying there has to be provision of them gaining full employment after the internship. Because they're saying otherwise, if that is not there, the government and other entities are just enjoying cheap labor. And then they go back, as you have said, after 1 year. And so it is good to be honest, because I know later you'll be told it's budgetary issues. You can commit here and then later you say there's no money. So the young people just want an honest answer whether they will be employed after their internship. And the last thing just on that, Chairman, is that the last question, I agree with you also on one thing. Public Service Commission, and we engaged during the public participation. Internship is not a preserve of the Public Service Commission. The Parliamentary Service Commission also takes interns, the Judicial Service Commission, other commissions in TAC, which actually has a good practice where they have a merit list. So instead of advertising again for new people to get full employment, why don't we have a database of the ones who've done internship, and they be given priority when it is time for employment, and they create space for others to get internship?
Mr. Chairman, can I? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I want to respond to the issues raised by the member for Teso South, the Honorable Mary Amase, where she raised the issue of a circular. And let me first of all say that I haven't come across any such circular. It was a pronouncement which I think has not been secularized. The issue that I'm aware of is that of course, which every one of us is aware, is the issue of the austerity measures being implemented currently, which have necessitated some temporary or sort of a moratorium on recruitment. It is not that it has been stopped. So it is not, I don't think that it's right for us to say that there's been a circular. There hasn't been any, because I've gone through, it's an issue that I was addressing when I met with the senior staff of the ministry. Mr. Chairman, the issue of aging staff is true, and this also speaks to the question of succession planning. And I think it is right to point to say that something somewhere has gone wrong within the HR department, the human resource area, because it is true, Mr. Chairman, you find honorable members, you find that some very, very senior people in the public service, the people that deputize, and they are almost exiting the service, but the people deputizing them are so lowly placed. I think that that is a mistake that must be corrected immediately. And it's a matter of us having to engage properly with the Public Service Commission, because people are all over, but some certain things which I believe maybe we will have occasion to discuss later, the issue of training, on-job training, seems to have taken some back seats. And that is where the problem of aging staff, people wanting to remain without people sufficiently well prepared and trained to take over their positions. I think it is a mistake. It needs to be addressed as soon as possible. The Honorable Miriam Master, through you, Mr. Chairman, did raise the issue of corruption in recruitment. Mr. Chairman, this is, I think, a thorn in all areas of, most of the publics in the entire gamut of public service recruitments, because there's a lot of opaqueness. Positions are advertised. When people are long listed, you see names, then they are shortlisted, then you don't know what the process is that happen thereafter. And connected to this, Mr. Chairman, is if you read the Article 232 of the Constitution on the mandate and functions of the Public Service Commission, among others, is to ensure efficiency and effectiveness in the public service. And the other value and principle is the diversity of Kenya, diversity among regions and communities. It is a value that is embedded in that Article 232. But, Mr. Chairman, you and I will know, sometimes it's very difficult, and we have seen reports that have been published that really show skewed, very, very skewed situations about how many people, how many civil servants are in which area. And Mr. Chairman, I'm not blowing my trumpet, but I want to tell the country and this committee that while I worked here, we had occasion to, first of all, before making placements, to indicate, first of all, to get to know how many people already are in service and from which counties, so as to ensure that those counties that do not have representation here, even through affirmative action, get the chance to work at this premier institution, national premier institution called Parliament. Mr. Chairman, in addressing this issue, these are some of the practices that I would want to suggest to the Public Service Commission to employ, because every part of Kenya deserves a chance to serve in the public service. Mr. Chairman, I have sympathy with what the Honorable Lesunda, through you, has been told by the young people as she was processing her bill. Mr. Chairman, we must say this without feeling shy about it. It may not be possible for the public service, indeed not just may, it cannot be possible for the public service to employ every Kenyan that goes through the training. But it is the duty of government to ensure that we have policies and programs that make it possible for the economy to absorb those whom we train in our various institutions of higher learning and others. So it is an altruism, and I think I want to agree with the honourable member that I don't want to be visited by, to be haunted by nightmares. If I give a commitment here that we will absorb, the chairman, we may not be able to, but we have to look for ways of ensuring that those that have been taken through the process finally find some placement one way or other. There are various options available.
Thank you.
Before he moves out of that, Honorable Speaker, would you then, if you may not assure them of placement, but at least priority when opportunities arise, especially now that there has been a pronouncement that those who are above 60 years of age will not have their contracts being renewed or extended?
Actually, I had noted the issue of priority, that yes, and I think we must take a lead from what the president said the other day when he was at a pass-out parade for the NYS recruits, when he suggested to the Kenya Defense Forces and the National Police and other security agencies that please, when you're recruiting, because the people that go through the NYS first of all get a 6 months paramilitary training. So it makes perfect sense that if possible, do about 80% of those, and they come from every corner of the Republic. So even in respect to these interns, I think we should give priority when it comes to absorption to those that have gone through the program. Thank you.
Jeanette.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, through the nominee, there are one or two issues is for clearing the air, and one is a question. The ones of clearing the air is you served as Attorney General for the last, let's say, 2 years now, a few months remaining. The issues that came that people were not taking your advice, whether they were legal or they were non-legal, I don't know, but your advice, which I assume they were legal. Could you touch on that matter? And then the other issue is when you were working at the Attorney General.
Which people? He was not advising people, he was advising the government.
Yeah, I'm saying.
So be specific with your question.
No, I'm saying there was accusation, there were statements out there saying that your advice was not being taken. There was a statement out there in the public domain that your advice was not being taken. So the advice could be taken by the government people in whichever capacity they are serving. Then secondly, the issue of when you are running the office of the Attorney General, there were issues, I found that one in Parliament, between your office and the Public Service Commission in terms of recruitment of that office. And now you are going to be working with them in terms of policy, you will be in charge. How will you take care of that? Then my last question is, the President, when this uprising happened the other day, one of the statements he issued was that people who have reached the age of 60 years must leave the civil service. But there are people who are 60 now and still working. They have contracts that are running. Now, and that is the way we can bring up the youth into the system when you create space for them. So what do you think you will do if you get favor with this committee and you are appointed? Will you create that space for the youth so that these people who have clocked the age of 80, they should leave, that they leave the civil service? Because they have 60 and not 80. No, I didn't say 80, 60. No, you people, I know why you're saying 80, but I said 60.
Posing.
Thank you, Speaker, and the nominee, Speaker Emeritus. One is, should you get favor, now that the word is popular, should you get favor from committee and approved by Parliament? Please, what practical thing will you do? Will you audit or something like that in terms of community balances in terms of employment in public service? Because that item, although the Constitution prescribes Honorable Speaker Emeritus, but it's being abused. Nobody follows completely. And therefore, it's very skewed. Employment of government in public service is very skewed. So what will you do, an audit or something like that? And how will we know that actually you did that? Number two is have an overlook or a compound look at the counties' public service. Public service. I think, Honorable Chair, if there are people who are, I will say, they are suffering psychologically, are almost the entire employees of counties. Entire counties in this country, 47. Why? Because when a governor leaves, another governor comes, there's a lot of sacking. Everybody's going home. You don't know what's going on. And therefore, that imbalances or lack of security or lack of known or policy makes actually compromise public service and services at the counties. So please, should you get favor and approved? I know you have the demeanor, you have you are a leader of this country. Please make sure that you have an overlook of counties. Counties are suffering. I thank you, Chair.
Ikaria.
Thank you, Chairman. Disciplinary cases for civil servants. Ordinarily, there is an allegation out there that they take too long for the appeals. If an action has been taken by a ministry, so when they make an appeal comes to the Public Service Commission, then it takes unnecessarily too long. And my second question is about your resignation. When you are invited to make your introduction, I heard you say that you resigned.
Yes.
Are we expecting another resignation after you're approved? Thank you, Chairman.
We can take Amisi.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker.
Yes, not the nominee.
Thank you, Speaker. I just have one question, Speaker. This National Youth Service that falls under your docket is really dear to me because of the youth aspect and the youth population bulge that most countries are grappling with, Kenya not exempted. And if you look at the history of the National Youth Council, started National Youth Service at the independence. In fact, the late director of Stare was at the center of the foundation of this institution where Stare was schooled. And the discipline we get at Stare is the same discipline that was supposed to be replicated in those services. And the paramilitary training just came in later. But you know, the essence of it was to make youth participate in the national building. They get skills at a very small stipend, and they build national. But you see, the way we've structured National Youth Service, it's become a privilege for the who is who that letters are flying around leaders, taking letters across the constituency. The most privileged are getting more letters than the others. But it's supposed to be a program that consumes all our youth into a training pool. In fact, it was borrowed to, this is an issue that has faced many countries in history. US, when they had this issue of youth population bulge, they had what we call the Peace Corps, where young people were being sent across the world to be incorporated in different ways of culture, heritage, and they learn a lot, they come back and they build their nation. This is the problem we have with the youth. We do not know how to do with this chunk of young people for the benefit of the country. How are you going to structure NYS in a way that it does not become a privilege rather than an expanded program that takes all the young people across? And don't talk about the budget, because all the problem has always been we don't have enough money. But there's a lot of wastage. That place has become a cash cow. People walk in, do tenders, and they get rich, but the youth are suffering outside there. What is this you are going to do differently in that institution once and for all? Because we've had these talks about NYS for quite some time. What is this unique thing?
Nominee, if approved for appointment, which 3 specific reforms would you give priority?
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, I have one question to our nominee, and I'm looking at the constitutional mandates for gender representation. And I just see that women remain underrepresented in public service. Because if you look to most of the sectors in our government, they're being led by men. What specific reforms will you advocate to ensure compliance with this mandate and increase women representation? I think as a country we have some laws, but the problem is implementation, or rather enforcement. I thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Can you deal with those?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and honorable members. Well, let me begin with the issues raised by the Honorable Jeanette, Mr. Chairman. And just say one, I think sometimes our media, and we have to give it to them, are quite innovative. Sometimes how they innovate sometimes can cause you a lot of jitters. If you read the story, if you saw the headline and you read the whole story, you could not relate the two. Because in the middle of the story, inside this, I think on page 2 or page 3 of that newspaper, they went ahead to say that 99.5% of all advisories given by the Office of the Attorney General have been taken and implemented. Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases members, I could give an exit report on the performance of that office for the 20 months and 15 days that I was in charge. So that story was not correct. That advisories were not being taken, because the office gives advisories in respect to very, very many issues. International law. In fact, the office gives legal advisory opinions even to the county governments. And I cannot even remember which one was never implemented. If there was anything that may have perhaps not been implemented, could have been maybe the things that we advise ministries, because as perhaps the members will know, the Office of the Attorney General is signatory to every cabinet memo that is generated by every ministry. And on occasions, we've had to return very many memos to the various ministries, and I've had to issue a circular to all ministries telling them, because they always insist that the AGs always gives them state council to sit in the ministries. So we asked them, what are those state councils doing? Because they will bring requests which are so raw. So maybe those are the only ones that they can, maybe somebody could say, those may not have been taken, because there are some ministries, some cabinet secretaries who would always argue that they think the office of the Attorney General is the mortuary where their proposals die. But they die, they never used to die there. We would always return the half dead and the corpses to them to go and bury in their respective ministries. So maybe only to that extent. Otherwise, I must say, we had I found a very, very exciting period at the State Law Office. The Honorable Junaid, through you, Mr. Chairman, did raise the question of the relationship between the Public Service Commission and myself when I was the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, Chairman, the relationship I had and the proposals that I put through, and I must, Mr. Chairman, through you, thank the National Assembly for, and through the Chairman of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee for agreeing with my proposals, Mr. Chairman, that there was need for the office to be given the autonomy it required to recruit its own personnel. The reason being, Mr. Chairman, on occasion, they would recruit people and send them to the State Law Office. Sometimes when you look at them, they ask them, did you know the areas where we have need? Is it in the area of public trusteeship? Is it in the area of societies? Is it in the area of companies? Is it in the government transactions? Is it international law? These ones you have brought to us. So what are their key competencies? They will never be able to answer that question. They will tell you that all they needed is to recruit lawyers, and they dump them to you. So the position I took there was not a personal, it wasn't personal. It was just for posterity and to build the institution of the State Law Office, to make sure that it is fit for purpose. So, and also, and you remember, when we launched the 24th annual supplement in April this year, His Excellency the President himself, off the cuff, did speak to the fact that he had assented to that bill to give autonomy to the office of the Attorney General to be able to recruit its staff. And we were speaking about that in the context of the fact that we were launching the 24th annual supplement after the 23rd one had been launched in 1995. So, and His Excellency the President did see the merit in the proposals that I had made. And since, again, Mr. Chairman, the House did agree with me, and I really must remain eternally grateful to the House. The matter ended there. It was nothing personal. It was not to give me a job. It was to ensure that that office becomes what it is supposed to be, the biggest and the best law firm for the public in Kenya. And I hope that, and I'm happy, Mr. Chairman, that I've seen the nominee is a person, again, who began a working career at the State Law Office and has been the secretary to the advisory board at the ODPP, which is the same thing that you as a House gave me, the advisory board. That's what we were looking for. So I believe that my relationship with the Public Service Commission should not be strained on account of what I did. In fact, if I find favor, again, with you and the House, and I'm confirmed in this position, I would want to continue assisting the State Law Office to develop, because even then I was actually using officers from the Ministry of Public Service to help us to develop the human resources department of the State Law Office. So I hope that anybody who may have been, aggrieved by the decision to give that office that capacity should not have any difficulties working with me. In any event, we are conjoined at the hip, and we must work together and differences of opinion must never make, make for enmity. The leader of majority did raise the issue of, is it the people age 80 or? Yes. I have done some quick assessment of that position, and I'm told currently in the mainstream public service they may be less than 10. But of course, whether they are 10 or 1, if the directive is at 60 you go home and you are an employee, so be it. We just must live by the law. And I think this, I would want to tie this with the question Mr. Chairman raised by the Honorable Mishi, the member for Likoni, on this issue of gender. Mr. Chairman, I did allude to what is provided for in Article 232. Among other things in that article is the question of the special place for the youth, women, and people living with disabilities in the recruitment, even as we address the issue of other forms of diversity in our country. I think it has come to a point, Mr. Chairman, when we must now bite the bullet and implement what is in our laws. We can't have a constitution to which we just pay lip service. I think it's not, unfortunately for me, Mr. Chairman, I like taking, once I take a position, I like being held to account on the basis of the position that I take, because we cannot, we just have to implement the Constitution. You in Parliament are doing your very best to try and live by that Constitution. So everybody else in the public service should also be held accountable. And I hope, Mr. Chairman, that the House will help me when I bring reports about who is not living by the constitutional imperatives, so that you can hold them to account in the way that Parliament the world over does. So, Honorable Chairman, in response to that issue raised by the Honorable Mishimboko, it is just to say that I intend to live by what is in the Constitution. This question again, Mr. Chairman, it ties alongside with that raised by the member for Pokot South. Mr. Chairman, he used to have a name. He was called Pokot 1. He raised the issue of diversity again. And I think I like his proposal, Mr. Chairman, that we need to carry regular audits in this matter, because we must bring confidence, the trust of the people to government. And one of the ways to go about this is by telling it as it is. If we find that there has been skewed recruitment, let us just be open about it, so that everybody from whichever corner of the Republic should feel that they belong to the government. There should never be a case where people in one corner of the Republic feel that there's a place called Kenya, and they think it is called Nairobi. Nairobi is Kenya, because I don't think that they belong. I agree with the Honorable member for Pokot South. Again, this must cascade to the county service board, the county public service boards. I do know that when you go to a county, again, there are other dynamics. But the responsibility that has been assigned to the Ministry of Public Service is to come up with policies that advise county governments with respect to matters of public service. But of course, the implementation and enforcement is left to other agencies, other bodies like Parliament and other institutions. Say, for instance, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, which is a constitutional body, then Gender and Equality Commission, and the Commission on Administrative Justice. We also have, of course, the Public Service Commission is in the Constitution also mandated to assist county government through the county service board to come up with policies, public service standards that should be implemented at the county level. So that would be my response to that. Mr. Chairman, there was, through you, there was the question raised by the Honorable Gekaria, the member for Nakuru Town East, if I still remember his constituency, about disciplinary cases taking far too long to resolve. And this is a matter, fortunately, Mr. Chairman, I can speak to this one for quite at great length because I have had occasion to deal with disciplinary cases within the Public Service Commission. It is the procedure that is used that is too long, Mr. Chairman. I do recall when I was a magistrate, I got involved in dealing with some of those cases because the process starts at the ministry level, because as you know, under clause 5 of that Article 232, the PSC is empowered to delegate any of its functions to other bodies or to some of its members, and some to any public officer or other authorities. One of the functions that they have delegated through letters they write to people called authorized officers. It is that issue of the HR function. And I think, Mr. Chairman, my own experience is that it has not been carried out properly. And it speaks volumes when cases, disciplinary cases, take so long, and possibly the staff who are the subject of those disciplinary proceedings are put on half salary, or they are not allowed to participate in several other service functions that they were engaged to do. So it's a matter that I think we need to streamline the procedures so that matters can be resolved. And at this point in time, when we are all talking about leveraging on technology, I think these are matters that should be resolved much faster. On the question of resignation, if I got the Honorable Gekaria properly, he said that he saw that I had resigned. That's what is in the Kenya Gazette. It is true indeed that I resigned, and there were reasons. Because as you would expect, at the national executive level, and I know the country was alive to the fact that there had been some disquiet. And the only honorable thing at that point in time to do was to take a position through a route that is provided for in law, to allow His Excellency the President opportunity to reorganize his government as he desired. So that allow a situation whereby you tie the president with the fact that certain things have not happened, or this or the other as provided for in law. I took the option of assisting the president to make the decision to do the alignment. Honorable Chairman, there are two other areas. Well, the issue raised by the Honorable Caleb Amisi about the NYS, and he did give examples about the American Peace Corps. I think those are very positive remarks and comments. But I want to add that yes, Honorable Caleb Amisi did mention the issue of discipline, Mr. Chairman, and it is not without foundation, because the 6 months paramilitary training obviously equips the trainees with certain patriotic norms that ordinarily will not be found in an environment that is not such as the one we find ourselves in the NYS training camps. But I did say that, Honorable Amisi, that there is the 6 months paramilitary training, and there is the 1 year national service. from this national service, the graduates are assisted almost invariably where it is possible to either become self-reliant or self-employed, if you wish. And those others that depend on what courses one takes, because when they go to for the national service, they take some certain job-related courses. It could be in the hospitality industry, it could be in construction, and such like trades. And those that also wish to continue with further training are encouraged to join currently the TVET programs within the Ministry of Education, where they would go and to get either diplomas or certification at the TVET level to equip them further for the job market. I want to agree with the member that indeed there have been incidences where corruption has been mentioned. I think this is a matter of concern to all of us. We've seen some of them. I don't want to go into some details, some of which I'm sure most members may have seen, as when people start moving around with appointment letters or recruitment letters, it becomes, it is something that speaks to the integrity of a process. And I think it's one of the areas
point
that...
Point of order, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker. Just to clarify to the nominee, because I don't think you got my question clearly. I don't need to go to the nitty-gritties of the operations of NYS. It's common knowledge, we know it. My question was that this good program that has undergone a lot of mutations, that's why there is now the paramilitary being introduced. But initially, at some stage, it used to actually be a compulsory stage for those who are even advancing to universities and institutions of higher learning. It was a compulsory stage, meaning the initial perception of this was to incorporate all youth towards a compulsory stage before you advance to the other programs. So how can we expand it so that it stops being a privilege for the few, that letters are now being floated, it becomes gold for you to get an NYS letter? How can you expand that program more or less the way it was? That's the question.
Well, that's a governance issue, Madam Deputy Speaker. It just speaks to lack of order, and lack of discipline, because it shouldn't happen that way. But we do know that it has happened, and it does happen. But of course, the corruption that you mentioned about, other than this one of recruitment, this can be addressed, because we just have to be everybody to play their part. There are those of us who will be charged, and in this case, Parliament with the oversight. And I must say that recently I watched some debate at which the House properly expressed itself with regard to